My fiancé was a monster, but the spy who saved me just revealed he's my father, and now the secret police are locking us in the restaurant to retrieve the evidence I swallowed. The crystal flute slipped, the champagne freezing mid-arc before it hit the pristine white linen. I didn't even notice the spill. The air in Le Fleur, usually thick with the soft murmur of success and expensive perfume, had suddenly turned glacial, suffocating. He was so young, barely 20, maybe less. Hair slicked back, eyes wide and frantic, the kind of panic that doesn't belong in a 5-star establishment. He shouldn't have been there. I knew that immediately. He looked like a lost kid stumbling into a lion's den, except I was the one about to be devoured. He didn't sit. He didn't ask permission. He just lunged toward our table, ignoring my fiancé, Mark, who was mid-sentence detailing his quarterly projections. The boy leaned in, smelling faintly of rain and something metallic. Fear, probably, and his breath ghosted against my earlobe. "It's happening tonight, Alara, the transfer. They know about the accounts." My composure shattered into a million pieces. The blood drained from my face so fast I actually felt dizzy. I stared past the boy at Mark, whose perfect, handsome face was now etched with confusion and slight annoyance. "Excuse me, son. Who are you?" Mark asked, his voice dangerously smooth, the tone he used when dealing with an inconvenient junior associate. The boy didn't look at Mark. He kept his eyes locked on mine, transmitting an SOS signal only I could read. The drop location changed. Midnight. The old shipyard warehouse. Section C. If you go through with it, they'll have you. They'll pin everything on you, Alara, the whole organized scheme. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic captive demanding release. The accounts. The money I thought I'd move safely offshore. The contingency plan I'd built over 5 years in the shadows of my legitimate life. It was all smoke, apparently. They weren't just watching. They were closing in. "Go away," I hissed, my voice barely a thread. I reached for my designer clutch, my fingers fumbling for the small panic button hidden inside. "There's no time for games," the boy insisted, grabbing my wrist, a brief, desperate grip that jolted me. "Listen to me. They aren't just after the money. They're after him." He nodded subtly towards Mark, who was now slowly rising from his seat, his smile gone, replaced by a hard, calculating look that sent a fresh wave of ice down my spine. Mark wasn't just an ambitious businessman, he was my partner in this precarious dance, or so I thought. "Who is him?" I whispered, trying to pull my hand free. The boy's eyes darted wildly toward the entrance. "The ledger, the one you think is safe. It implicates everyone. But the person who sets the trap, he's not who you think he is. He's been running this network for years, Alara. He manufactured the entire situation to draw out the main players." The boy yanked something small and folded from his inner jacket pocket and pressed it into my palm, closing my fingers around it before pulling back. He took one last look at me, a look filled with pity and terror, and then he bolted. He didn't run for the exit. He ran straight into the kitchen, disappearing behind swinging doors. Silence descended on our table. Mark was standing now, looking down at me with an expression I had never seen directed my way, a cold, proprietary assessment that suggested I was a valuable asset that had just malfunctioned. "What was that, darling?" Mark asked, his voice losing its silkiness entirely. "Some over-dramatic delivery boy?" I slid my hand into my lap, closing my fingers around the folded paper. It felt thick, not like a note. "No," I managed, forcing a brittle laugh. "Just a wrong address. He thought I ordered takeout." Mark didn't move. He looked over my shoulder directly at the kitchen doors the boy vanished through. "I don't think so, Alara. He looked terrified, and I saw him give you something." My composure was gone. I had to know what was on that paper, and I had to get out of this room before Mark decided to investigate the kitchen himself. I stood up abruptly, knocking my chair back. "I need air, Mark. Too much champagne." I turned to flee, heading for the ladies' room, my only path away from the dining room. But as I reached the entryway, two large men, previously inconspicuous at a nearby corner table, moved with terrifying speed to block my path. They weren't waiters. Their posture was too rigid, too observant. I spun back toward Mark, my chest tight, ready to yell, ready to fight, ready to admit everything. Mark was smiling again, but it was a horrible, predatory sight. He leaned down to pick up my abandoned flute of champagne, swirling the liquid slowly. "Don't worry about the kitchen, Alara," Mark said, his voice calm, conversational, as if discussing vacation plans. "I already know what he gave you. He's not a messenger. He's my son." Then Mark brought the champagne flute to his lips, and as he sipped, his eyes never left mine, and he slid his other hand across the table, revealing a small, heavy-looking device, a remote trigger. And just as the realization hit me that the entire setup, the entire relationship, was the trap, the paper in my hand heated up violently, and I heard a faint, rhythmic beeping emanating from inside. I looked down, pulling my hand away from the sudden burning sensation, and saw the paper wasn't just paper. It was a sophisticated chemical detonator. "The warehouse isn't the target, Alara. That paper you're holding? That's for the restaurant." The beeping escalated from a quiet pulse to an insistent, rapid staccato. The heat in my palm was searing now, the paper already beginning to smoke, the chemical reaction irreversible. Panic turned into pure animalistic survival instinct. "Mark, stop this!" I screamed, throwing the burning packet onto the polished marble floor between us. The two heavy-set men flanking the exit froze, looking down at the small plume of gray smoke rising from the spot where the paper landed. They were momentarily distracted, trying to process the immediate, localized threat versus the larger plan. Mark didn't flinch. He simply rotated the remote trigger in his hand, his eyes locked on the rising smoke. "Too late, darling. You were supposed to take that to the shipyard. You were supposed to be the fall guy for the missing funds. You were supposed to walk right into the arms of the service, the Служба внутренней безопасности, after you triggered the diversion." His confession was delivered with the casualness of someone ordering dessert. My mind was racing, trying to reconcile the man I loved, the man I was going to marry next month, with this cold-blooded architect of my ruin. He hadn't just been controlling the money, he'd been controlling me. "Your boy, your son," I choked out, trying to buy seconds. "He warned me." "Why?" Mark laughed, a dry, rattling sound devoid of warmth. "He's not my son, Alara. He's yours. And he warned you because he saw how neatly I'd set up your sentencing. He always was too soft, too sentimental, just like his mother." The implication hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. My son. The boy I thought was studying overseas. The one I hadn't seen in 18 months because Mark insisted distance was necessary for operational security. He wasn't studying. He was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to intervene. And now he'd just signed his own death warrant by exposing Mark. The immediate threat from the burning paper subsided as the chemicals burned out quickly, leaving behind a small, black, inert crisp, a fizzle, not a bang. Mark had played me again. The restaurant was fine, but the two men near the exit hadn't moved to subdue the smoking spot. They were still watching me, their attention now shifting to the doorway. "You see, Alara, the real problem isn't the initial money trail," Mark continued, taking a slow, deliberate step toward me. "The problem is the ledger he mentioned, the real ledger, the one that proves my involvement in destabilizing half the infrastructure in this sector. If that information gets out, I don't just get an Agromni Srock. The entire shadow government protecting me collapses." He raised the remote again, but this time his thumb hovered over a second, larger button, clearly marked. "Your son thought I wouldn't eliminate both of you. He thought sacrificing his cover to give you the warning would make you turn state's evidence against me. Sweet, naive boy. He forgot that I already have the final piece of the puzzle secured." My eyes flew back to the swinging kitchen doors. If my son was in there, he was about to face whatever terror Mark had ready. "Where is he, Mark? Let him go. I'll take the fall for the funds. Just let him walk," I pleaded, every vestige of my professional facade crumbling into desperate motherhood. Mark's face hardened into something truly monstrous. "Too late for deals, Alara. He already tried to move the ledger. He made a call 10 minutes ago to the only person he thought could intercept it before my security team did." He pressed the second button. Instead of an explosion, the entire restaurant plunged into absolute darkness. Every light blinked out simultaneously. The expensive crystal glasses on the tables suddenly sounded like gunfire as they shattered from an unknown vibration. The air filled with the screech of a blaring internal alarm system, deafening and overwhelming. "What did you do?" I screamed into the black void, my hands instinctively covering my ears. Mark's voice cut through the chaos, no longer calm, but resonant and triumphant, amplified somehow by the sudden lack of light. "I didn't trigger the bomb here, Alara. That was just a distraction. Your son made one mistake in his rescue attempt. He contacted the one person I knew would respond immediately. The one person I wanted to respond immediately." A new sound pierced the alarm, a heavy, metallic grinding sound coming from the ceiling directly above where Mark was standing. It sounded like massive security shutters being drawn over the entire building. "He called his godfather," Mark roared with chilling glee, "and now that the building is sealed, the Sluzhba Vnutrennyi Bezopasnosti, the ones you thought were coming to arrest you, are already inside. They think you tried to set off a device to stop the transfer. And guess who tipped them off that the primary suspect, your son, is holding the evidence in the kitchen?" Suddenly, a blinding spotlight snapped on, focused not on me, but on the stainless steel kitchen doors. The grinding stopped, replaced by the sickening sound of rapid, heavy footsteps charging out of the kitchen. But it wasn't my son who emerged. It was an imposing figure in a dark, unmarked tactical vest, his face obscured by shadow, holding not a simple weapon, but heavy-duty restraint gear. And right behind him, dragging my son, who was already bleeding heavily from a gash on his temple, were two more men. The man in the vest didn't look at Mark. He didn't look at me. He looked directly at the emergency exit sign above the main dining room, and then he spoke into a radio strapped to his chest, his voice low and chillingly professional, cutting through the alarm. "Target neutralized. The primary asset is secure. Secondary asset, the female, is compromised and in possession of unauthorized materials. Initiate full perimeter lockdown. Inform command. We have intercepted the evidence. The ledger is ours." Mark looked at me, his face pale now, realizing he'd lost control of his own trap. "He's working for them," Mark whispered, horrified. "The Godfather. He's the one running the whole operation. He used me to flush you out." And then The man who just emerged, the one who looked like he belonged to a black ops unit, turned his shadowed head slowly toward Mark, and from beneath the brim of his tactical helmet, a single, familiar, horrifying sound emerged. The click of a heavy rifle being chambered. The sound of the rifle cycling was the loudest thing I had ever heard, a final mechanical punctuation mark on Mark's meticulously constructed lie. The tactical man, the Godfather's enforcer, didn't waste a single second arguing semantics or affiliations. He had his orders, and his orders superseded the hierarchy Mark thought he commanded. Mark had been a useful pawn, but now he was collateral damage. Mark let out a choked gasp, his eyes wide with the terror of ultimate betrayal. He looked down at the remote trigger still clutched in his hand, the button he used to summon the authorities who now clearly worked for the man standing 20 feet away. "No, I work for you. I gave you the whole network," Mark shrieked, staggering backwards, stumbling over the overturned chair. The enforcer didn't speak. He just raised the weapon, the muzzle steady, aimed squarely at Mark's chest. In that frozen moment, seeing Mark about to be executed by the very people he thought were his allies, I didn't think about the millions I'd lost or the tashkoi obvinenia I was about to face for the funds. I only saw my son, bleeding, held captive just feet away, and the absolute necessity of disrupting this chain of command. I moved, not toward the exit, not toward safety, but directly toward the tactical man's line of fire. "Wait!" I screamed, throwing myself in front of Mark, presenting myself as the primary target. "The ledger isn't here. It's not on the boy. It's on me!" The enforcer hesitated, a flicker of confusion crossing his shadowed face. He lowered the rifle fractionally, waiting for confirmation of the threat assessment. "If you shoot him, you destroy the proof," I forced the words out, gesturing frantically toward the inert, smoky scrap on the floor. "You need me alive to explain the transfer logs. You need me to sign the confession that implicates the other players. I'm the key to dismantling the entire infrastructure you're trying to control." It was a desperate gamble. I was betting my life on the fact that the Godfather prioritized systemic control over immediate elimination. The enforcer kept his weapon trained on Mark, but he tilted his head toward the captured boy, who was struggling weakly against his bonds. "The boy talks," the enforcer stated flatly, his voice synthesized, metallic through the helmet comms. "He knows nothing about the real ledger," I countered fiercely. "He only knows the fake setup you and Mark fabricated to clean house. I have the actual decryption key, the one that bypasses the encrypted backdoors in the government servers. It's implanted." I reached up, ripping the exquisite diamond necklace Mark had given me off my throat. The clasp snapped easily. I held the chain out, deliberately dangling the heavy pendant, a single flawless emerald near the floor. "This isn't just jewelry," I whispered, my voice suddenly gaining a chilling authority. "It's a specialized storage device. I swallowed the actual key yesterday. If I go down, the self-destruct sequence on this chip activates in 3 hours. You get nothing." The silence that followed was absolute. The emergency alarm suddenly cutting out as if by remote command. The tactical man was receiving new instructions. "Release the boy," I commanded, my voice ringing with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. "You bring him to the shipyard. You bring me. We negotiate the terms of surrender, and I give you the decryption sequence before the timer expires." The enforcer stared at me, then at the struggling boy, and finally, reluctantly, at Mark, who was now scrambling backward into a dark corner, completely irrelevant. The man slowly nodded once, a single sharp movement. He signaled his subordinates. They roughly hauled my son to his feet, dragging him toward the still open kitchen doors. "He goes with you, Alara," the enforcer stated, his tone brooking no argument. "One move wrong, 1 second of delay, and we retrieve the key from your remains, and we send your son a very different message about loyalty." He took a deliberate step back, clearing the path to the kitchen. "Move, the night is young, and the cleanup is extensive." I didn't hesitate. I walked past the whimpering Mark, not sparing him a glance. He was already forgotten, already sentenced by his own hubris. I walked toward the darkness, toward the threat, toward the reunion with the son I thought I'd lost to lies. As I stepped across the threshold into the sterile, metallic confines of the kitchen, I saw the glint of metal on the floor, a discarded burner phone, vibrating silently. I bent down, snatched it up, and saw the single incoming text message that had just arrived, seconds before the enforcer gave the command. "Thank you for the warning, Alara. The ledger is safe. I'm already at the shipyard. I'll be waiting. P.S. Mark's entire security detail is on my payroll. He was never the mastermind. He was just the distraction. I'm the one who called the slujba on him this morning. See you soon." The message was signed simply, Dad.